You're listening to the LSG Sports Network, the authority on Texas high school football. Welcome to the Texas High School Football Coaches Show on Lone Star Gridiron. I'm Chris Daly, and it's my belief that the men that make up the fraternity of Texas high school football coaches are much more than a bunch of thick-necked guys with whistles. They do so much more than teach technique and the X's and O's of football. They take young boys and change them into young men of character. They get kids to believe in themselves, to trust others, and to put others ahead of themselves. Texas high school football coaches are unique in how they impact the lives of these athletes as well as the generations those kids touch. In this show, I sit down with a different Texas high school football coach each time and learn about them. Not their record, not their on-field accomplishments, but who they are and what they believe and what it means to be part of the greatest sport in the greatest state. Hey everybody, welcome out to the Lone Star Gridiron Texas High School Football Coaches Show, Season 5, Episode 8. I'm your host, Chris Daly, and today I get to introduce you to Coach Taylor. No, not Coach Taylor from Friday Night Lights. We're talking real Coach Taylor. We head just a little bit east of Houston, Texas to talk to Chad Taylor from Liberty High School right after these messages. Hey, I want to give a big thank you to this season's title sponsor, Mecca Sportswear, where they are all about celebrating achievement. They're honored that so many high schools, colleges, and universities have chosen Mecca's products to represent their institutions. Mecca supplies you with the very best in custom letter jackets, chenille letters, patches, blankets, banners, pins, certificates, and much more to motivate and celebrate achievement in athletics, academics, or the arts. They create high-quality custom awards that will fit your budget. To see why so many great schools around Texas choose Mecca Sportswear, call Sherry Armstrong or Billy Armstrong at 210-651-6592. Mecca Sportswear, the premier suppliers of letter jackets and awards for over 40 years.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Power Plus Mouth Guard. What is that? Well, it's a mouth guard that helps you perform better and also increases your strength, your balance, your stamina, reduces the G-forces which are found in concussions. And the way it does that is it aligns your jaw properly. So this mouthpiece not only protects you, but it's going to help you breathe better. And that's really what it comes down to. It puts your airways in a better alignment, and so that helps you breathe better, that helps you have better balance, helps you have better stamina, the more oxygen getting to your brain, the more oxygen getting to your muscles, and that's where this mouth guard can help you. So you can check them out online. Just go to powerplusmouthguard.com. All you have to do is hit / and shop, and it'll show you all the mouthpieces they have. But check them out and check out the website. Dr. Michael Hutchinson is the one who has designed this new technology, and I really do think it is very forward-thinking in helping reduce concussions, in helping you be more alert late in the game when you're going to be tired, your muscles are tired, lack of oxygen is starting to affect you. This mouth guard will help you in getting more oxygen to you. So check them out, powerplusmouthguard.com.
All right, everybody, join me in welcoming Coach Chad Taylor from Liberty to the show. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. I appreciate you guys having me.
Oh, you bet. And that's one of the cool things about this program is that we find the coaches we want to interview by the coaches we did interview. So that means your name was given to me by another coach.
Yeah, I remember that phone call you made, and Coach Thompson. Coach Thompson and I, I've had the unfortunate pleasure of playing those guys the last, I don't know how many years, and he's got the best of me pretty much every time. But he is definitely one of the great guys in our profession, one of the guys that I always enjoy visiting with. I don't enjoy playing his teams, but I have a lot of respect for the way he coaches and the way those guys play. It's unbelievable.
I'm with you. He's one of my favorite guys to just sit and chat with.
Absolutely. He'll call me just out of blue, and I mean, and we just talk like any other coaches would talk. You know, I mean, it's not necessarily about football all the time, but I enjoy every time Coach gives me a call. I stop what I'm doing and I listen to any words of wisdom or advice I can get from him.
I love it. All right, so this show's not about him.
Yes,
it's
no
about
doubt.
you. So if you could take us back to when you first discovered the game of football, whether it was playing or watching, or tell us that.
I'll tell you. I mean, my desire to become a coach was brought about, you know, the respect and the relationship that I had with my head coach in high school. John Hacker was his name, and my senior year he moved to Liberty from Athens High School, and I just the way that he treated all of us when he first got there. I mean, you couldn't help but love the guy, and just over the you know, once I finished playing for him and I graduated high school, I knew I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to have the same impact on young men and women, for that matter, that he had on me as a player. So I give Coach Hacker a lot of credit. Love the guy to this day, and still talk with him occasionally about the Liberty Panthers.
Nice. I love it. So after high school, tell us, you know, what happened next. Where'd you go to college? What'd you do there?
Well, I started off at Bland Junior College for a year, and then I made my way to Texas A&M University, where I graduated in December of '95. Got my first coaching position at Nocona High School up there around Wichita Falls.
Yeah.
It's been a journey ever since. I was there for a year. I got married that summer. I moved a little closer to where my wife was from, and I was fortunate to work with Brian Irwin over at Italy High School. Mm-hmm. I made a stop at West High School, and then from there we moved down here to the Houston area. I got a job at Baytown Sterling. I was there for about 4 or 5 years. Moved up to Jacksonville, Texas. Mm-hmm. I was there for about another probably 5 years. From Jacksonville to LaPorte, and from LaPorte to Liberty. So I mean, in the last few stops, I was there for 4 to 5 years in each one of them, and I'm in my 7th year here at Liberty. So I've made some stops along the way, but I think each and every one of them have helped me mold me into the guy and the coach I am today, and hopefully I can do the same thing with these young men I'm coaching.
Nice. If you could talk about some of the coaches you worked under and maybe some specifics that you learned from each of them.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, I think I learned most of my X's and O's from Brian Irwin. You know, Brian ended up being a state championship coach at Lamarck High School. I think he won 2 state championships there, and I think he finished his coaching career up at Flowerbound Marcus. Now he's into sales. But Brian was just my first couple of years, man, I realized I didn't necessarily know football, you know, as much as I thought I did, to be quite honest with you. But whenever I got to start working with Brian, I mean, he kind of broke it down for me a little bit better, and our preparation on the weekend. I mean, just you kind of just started. That's when I started really learning the game, and then I worked for a gentleman named Dave Joyner. He was my head coach at Nocona, and then I got back with him at West, where I was able to become the offensive coordinator. And first couple games that year, I mean, you know, Dave still ran the show, and he finally came to me one week. He said, "Look, you're never going to learn this until you get the full opportunity of doing it." So he said, "This week is your week."
Nice.
I mean, I was like, "Oh, okay, here we go." And you know, it was a good week. I mean, we had a really good game plan, and it was executed perfectly against I think it was against the Clifton Cubs, if I remember correctly. And you know, we put together probably 2 drives of 15 to 20 plays in that one particular game, and that's kind of when I slowly but surely started kind of getting the grasp of how to call a game, and this, that, and the other. But, I've had many head coaches work for a guy named Randy Copeland in Jacksonville, who Randy was kind of really hands off. He believed in his coaches that he hired, and he trusted us, and that's when I kind of started learning that that's what I needed to be like more if I was ever in this position, and that kind of carried over to my 5 years in LaPorte with Coach Jeff LaRoe. Jeff was the same way, and I was his defense coordinator the first 3 years in LaPorte, and then he asked me if I'd move over and coach offense my last 2 years, and that's when we were able to go back-to-back district champs, and we were in the same district with North Shore and Port Memorial, so that was a pretty good 2-year run for the Bulldogs back then. But yeah, man, I worked for some good guys, and each one of them had different qualities, and I learned a little bit from each one of them, and I'm pretty sure that I've screwed up everything I've learned from them in my 7 years as a head coach.
Nice. You mentioned, and I've heard this from a lot of coaches, that early on, everybody thinks they know football until it's their job to run the show. And you mentioned you realized you didn't know football. What changes in your understanding of football compared to like Joe off the street thinking he knows football? What doesn't he know?
Back then at that early age, you probably just watched a lot of football and you knew plays. You knew how to run plays and stuff. But it'd be just like this if I had any parent come up there. I'd say, hey, block that play versus a 4-3, or block that play versus a 3-4, cover 1, or whatever. It's just those things like that where you really got to start breaking down the actual, the blocking schemes and how to combat, certain defenses and blitzes. And, I was just I'm not going to lie, I got kind of overwhelmed that first year going, really, this is a whole lot more to it than what I thought it was. But, and so that's kind of really, how I try to approach it with any young coach that I may come in contact with, is that you got to study this game. You've got to actually study these plays and what defenses are doing and what little things you need to do to adjust to make this play, actually be successful. So that's why I was like, man, I didn't realize that all that went into it, and,
right.
And those are some things you got to actually learn on your own. You could, you learn from some coaches, and then you got to kind of study that stuff on your own outside of being in that office.
Definitely. So, a lot of also young coaches, they'll want to come out of college and go straight to, hey, I want a 6A job as a head coach. Talk about how that's unrealistic and the benefit of those multiple stops in different positions that you coach along the way.
Well, I definitely think along the way I learned so much positive and negative about what I would do if I was ever in this position. Mm-hmm. And so, I think every stop has a vital part of, me being, the head coach of the Liberty Panthers, which, by the way, is where I grew up. And so that was the one job that I always felt like I wanted, was to come back home and maybe do something mm-hmm. that no other coach before me was able to do. I think along the way, these guys, you got to get your feet wet, and there's so many knowledgeable coaches out there, and you learn so much. I honestly feel like every coach ought to start off in the 2A, 3A level and learn how to paint a field and learn how to do laundry and just, learn all the things that you got to do that some people take for granted as you get, into those bigger schools that have maintenance crews and turf fields, and, they get to spend a lot more time on game planning, whereas me, I'm still in a situation on Wednesday evening when we get done with practice, we all have to meet at the football stadium mm-hmm. and, and stripe a field and, paint numbers and all that other good stuff. So, and I wouldn't change that for the world, to be honest with you. That's just another opportunity for us as coaches to get together in a non-stressful situation and interact with each other. So, but you learn so many things working at a smaller level than you probably would if you jump right into, a 5A or 6A position.
Right. Now you've coached in North Texas, East Texas, the Houston area, big city, small town. Talk about the differences in those. How are they different?
I mean, I think they're just different in just numbers in general, and having, not having, on my level now, we definitely have to practice both sides of the ball, and a lot of those kids would play, a lot of minutes on both sides on a Friday night. I tell you, the great thing about coaching in the state of Texas, but is the fact that we're all competitive, and that doesn't change from level to level, and we all want to win, and we all compete at a high level, and we all prepare at a high level. If you're coaching in Texas, I've coached at 6A LaPorte, and we were, regional finalists twice, and I was fortunate and unfortunate to run into the Katy Tigers, 4 out of the 5 years I was there, and we were able to beat them one year, which is probably one of the highlights of my career, is beating those guys, knowing the type of program that they have over there. I mean, you just can't help but know that elevated our program at LaPorte at the time. But, and then I've coached at, down at 2A Italy High School, where we were 14-1 and got beat in the state semifinals. And I mean, those are some of the greatest moments I've had as a coach. And still some of those relationships that you build at that school district. That's, one of the biggest differences. Just when you're at a smaller school, you can build relationships with everybody from the cafeteria worker to the janitors to, anybody in admin or transportation, whereas you get in those bigger school districts, you just don't have the opportunity to build those kind of relationships. So I wouldn't change it for the world. I love where I'm at, and I love working for the people that I work for. So
nice. And at the top of the show, we talked about Coach Cornell Thompson. Talk about those relationships with other coaches and how they're friendships and respect first and competition second.
Well, I mean, most definitely. I mean, I think that's to me the beauty of what it is we do. I mean, not only do we get to coach young men and hopefully help mold them and get them to understand that, this is just a game, but it's going to prepare you for, having to make decisions and facing adversity along your journey as an adult. But man, I tell you what, I've met so many good people, and Cornell is just one of many along the 7 years, that I've been the head coach, and going back even when I was assistant coach. A lot of those guys, we used to get together and work some of those, A&M football camps, and those relationships that you built up during that time of just working some summer camps, they still carry on today. But I mean, Randy Smith at Silsby is a guy that, that I've befriended, in his time in Silsby. I mean, and I haven't had much luck against those guys, the Silsby and West Orange, but you can't help but have respect for the way that those guys, coach their teams and handle their players. And then, at the end of the day, they put a good product out there, and they represent our district, and they represent Southeast Texas, at a high level. So, yeah, I mean, I can't sit there and go through all the names of the guys that I've come across, in our profession. But, I mean, every one of them, I don't have a problem reaching out to them at any time and, conversing about anything that's going on in our profession.
I love it. And from those type of relationships to the relationships with kids, you've alluded to it a couple times here, but talk about that, which is really the backbone of the entire thing. Absolutely. I mean, we deal with kids that come from all different types of situations, and we might not necessarily know exactly what's going on, outside of this school setting. So, I mean, you get an opportunity to, dive into, to some of those guys' personalities and what,
what triggers them to do certain things and help them. I mean, where I'm at, I deal with a lot of kids that, come from single parent homes and I try to be there for them as much as I can, without shortchanging my own family and my own kids. But I mean, I tell them every day that I love them, that I appreciate everything that they do for our program. And at the same time, I get on to them for everything that they may have done, in terms of, not turning in homework or they're, back talking to the teacher or something like that. I mean, when you're at a small school, you hear it all. And a lot of those teachers and administrators, they come straight to me to try to help handle certain situations with certain kids. And I mean, that's just part of what we do. And it was no different in LaPorte. I'm not saying it's any different. Those guys came to Coach LaRoe and myself and Coach Cameron and any of those guys that were coaches at the time. I mean, I think they understand that we are their biggest allies. We're not an enemy or nothing like that. We will help you help them, and that's what we do. And in return, you get a lot of that from the teachers as well. So, being in a small school, we have a good relationship with our faculty and our administrators, and we're all there in the best interest of that young man or young woman that we're trying to coach at that time. So it's great. I mean, I wouldn't change it for the world.
Amen. Coach Chad Taylor, I want to thank you so much for sitting down, sharing a little bit of your story.
Well, I do appreciate you having me, and I mean, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Hey, once again, I want to thank Coach Chad Taylor for sitting down and sharing a little bit of his story with me and his passion, his background, his insight. And I want to thank you guys, for giving me your attention all these seasons, all these episodes, and for sharing these stories with other people. Until next time, I'm Chris Daly, and we'll see you at the game.
Did you play Texas high school football? If you did, you're part of an elite group, the Brotherhood of Texas High School Football. All football players, past and present, who have ever suited up in the Lone Star State are eligible. Go to LoneStarGridiron.com/brotherhood. And thank you for the part you played in the greatest sport in the greatest state.